Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Aleks Lazovski. I work for UNICEF here in Dominica. First of all, let me congratulate the Ministry of Social Services, Gender and Family Affairs for the leadership role in having this emergency cash transfer program being designed, implemented, and up and running as of today. In particularly, I'd like to congratulate the Minister of Social Services and Permanent Secretary for their exquisite leadership and the work on this area. One of the main reasons why UNICEF decided to partner with our colleagues from the WFP in the implementation of this joint emergency cash transfer program with the government of Dominica was that there is significant evidence pointing out that cash in emergencies is a reliable form of support. By utilizing cash, we can act quite quickly and reach the most vulnerable families affected by the hurricane. As my colleagues already spoke about the objective of the program, I'd like to focus a little bit more on the criteria that we designed together with the Ministry of Social Services and the WFP in order to make sure that the most vulnerable of the most vulnerable are reached with this program. As the Permanent Secretary already rightly mentioned, we feel that the beneficiaries of the ongoing public assistance program are some of the most vulnerable citizens of Dominica, and it's correct to assume that they would have been one of the most affected by the hurricane. So a significant component of all the beneficiaries of this program will be the recipients of the PAP, of the Public Assistance Program, so they automatically qualify. However, we felt, having in mind that the impact that this hurricane had, it would be also good to expand this cash program to some of the most vulnerable households. And we worked together with the representatives of the Ministry of Social Services to identify these households. And at this point of time, I'd like to mention the role that all the village councillors and representatives of the villages had in helping us identify these people. As part of the targeting strategy, the ministry and the partners established so-called beneficiary selection committees in each of the village councils that try to identify the most vulnerable households. One of the main criteria that the beneficiary selection committees utilized in identifying these households was the fact that the households have to have lost their livelihoods or have to have lost their main source of income as a direct result of the hurricane. So basically, the head of the household is currently unemployed as a result of the hurricane. But in addition to these main criteria, there were several other criteria that also had to be fulfilled. At least one of the following criteria has to be fulfilled, and that's that the household includes pregnant and or lactating women. The household also includes children and foster children. Also households with persons with disabilities, with persons with severe chronic illness or elderly persons would also be considered vulnerable and taken into consideration. Households headed by elderly persons and single elderly persons will also be considered a vulnerability. Then single mother and single male headed households, women and girls at risk of exploitation or abuse. Large households with a high dependency ratio, households whose houses were severely targeted or destroyed by the hurricane, people who live in collective centers or informal self-settlements, and finally people who live in emergency shelters, emergency rental homes, or with host families. So The total number of beneficiary households that will be included under this program is approximately 8,300 households. And as a representative of UNICEF, I'd like to point out that UNICEF will focus and will work together with the World Food Program and our partners in the Ministry of Social Services to especially target the most vulnerable children. We will be focusing to reach at least 6,000 vulnerable children from these pre-identified households. I think that sums it up in terms of the criteria. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or go a little bit more in detail if there are any questions. Thank you very much.